Set champs, done. Sets 1 through 8, done. New rotation starts now. And in all honesty, what you probably have already kind of realized is, I don't know, there's like 20, 25 cards left to be revealed. The majority of them are reprints. Anyone really following along, looking real close, there's probably not that really cool legendary that you want coming back. Sorry. It's probably not that really cool super rare that you want coming back. Sorry. So because of that, we have to look to the future. We have to look with what we already have. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the cards from sets 5 through 8 that I think are going to make the biggest impact. Not necessarily the cards that coming out in set 9 and some of the new decks that can be built with those, such as Powerline, and I'm sure some others maybe still to come, but just the cards that, like, hey, on day one, if I can't get product, if I can't find exactly what I'm looking for, if I don't have enough time to test this other deck, these are the cards that I think that you can start with, build around, and maybe only need a little bit of a piece of a new card, and hopefully really not that much at all. So with that being said, let's start looking at all the different cards from the inks themselves and the best duel links that I think will have an impact on the metagame on day one. Let's get into it. Lady and Tiana, the dual 3-cost threat for Amber. Lady, the family dog, is a 2-strength, 2 willpower, 2 lore, a character with someone to care for. When you play this character, you may play a character with cost 2 or less for free. Tiana, the restaurant owner, is a 3-cost uninkable 1-strength, 4 willpower, 2 lore with the ability Special Reservation. Whenever a character of yours is challenged while this character is exerted, the challenging character gets -3 strength this turn unless their player plays 3. So this really is a dual threat combination for the format. I believe Tiana does an incredible job of shutting down opponents' rush characters, even just the ability to play on curve, period. In most cases, your opponent is not going to have the best song to answer this because a lot of the better songs that would have answered Tiana are gone from rotation. There's only a few subset of characters that even can 1-for-1 trade with Tiana. You really have to go out of your way to kind of work with it. And the biggest problem with Tiana is Pluto. In any world where we can Tiana into Pluto, we can effectively lock out the game because our opponent now has to get through a 5/5 while paying 3 to not have their character have -3 strength. And that is kind of their whole turn, which means it's going to be impossible for them to pay 3 again to get through Tiana. I believe the combination of these two cards are going to lead to the majority of the wins in the opening few weeks of sets 5 through 9 Fabled rotation. And that's why I think that they are the simplest, easiest cards to build around. I think both of these cards go in a lot of the same decks. I think both of them are very good threats, and they both allow you to represent a lot of lore, and it gives a honest, horrible feeling to your opponents when they look at their hands and realize, man, I cannot interact with Tiana. Oh my god, I can't believe they just played 3 or 4 lore worth of characters and maybe even drew 2 cards with one of the cards we're going to be talking about shortly. So, in my opinion, Amber is not about Rapunzel anymore. It's not about Goofy. It's not about any of those like crazy big singers, anything like that. It's now just understanding that Amber is right now the default 2 aggro deck of the format. And in all honesty, in a lot of cases, it really simply will just say, answer me. And if you can't, I'm going to win the game. I think right now on day one, if you have no time whatsoever to think about what to play, Amber Steel Aggro is the best deck. It is 100% a skill-intensive deck. You have to make the right choices, the right decisions, but it's one of those decks that when you make the best decisions, when you make the best plays, your opponent has a very limited amount of answers to those best plays. So therefore, I think Amber Steel is one of the best choices opening weekend, and these two cards are going to be at the top of a lot of lists. And if you're asking me, very honestly, I think both of them have a chance to also go up in price, so maybe you'll pick them up. Now, Strength of a Raging Fire might not be a set 9 new card, but it certainly is one of the reprints, and it might very well be the best song in the format. Therefore, I expect every single Steel deck to play 4 of them. But not only that, I expect every single steel deck to play 4 Dock Bold Knights. The 2 cost, 1 strength, 3 willpower, 1 lore with drastic measures. When you play this character, you may discard your hand and draw 2 cards. It's quite simple, friends. Dock is one of the premier ways to draw cards in the format. It's cheap, it's efficient, and guess what? Everybody runs out of cards in this format unless you're Sapphire Amethyst, and even then, that could be a problem. But my also honest truth is that if Sapphire Amethyst could play Dock Bold Knight, they probably would. That's how good this character is. Therefore, I think that these two are dominant cards in the format. I think they are absolute staples. In my humble opinion, they will be a 4 of in every single steel deck. I don't care what deck that you think you're playing or what deck you think you need. You're going to be playing these 2 cards. They're too good. They're too strong. They're too efficient. Therefore, if you don't have them yet, go buy them right now. I promise you, the odds of them going up are difficult because Strength is now having a reprint. It has a normal print. It has a promo version. Dock Bold Knight was in the Jafar's Heist. I think there was 2 of them in there, so they might not go up too much in price. But in all honesty, they still might find a way in a surge of people just trying to buy docks that are new players coming to the game. So I would buy them right now. You can pause the video and just go buy them if you don't have them. I promise you over the next year, they will see a lot of play in your decks. Amethyst has a lot of very interesting choices, but I think most of them come out of the dual ink from this particular ink. However, these 2 cards are 2 cost characters that we have not seen a ton of play so far in Disney Lorcana. Raja, the 2 cost inkable 3/3 with 1 lore and vanish when an opponent chooses this character for an action, banish them, is a really well static character in the format, and it does demand an action answer. And while your opponent could have one and it could get rid of your Raja, the other truth to that is it means they're probably not playing another character this turn. So as long as they're not getting the best of both worlds, moving their board forward and getting rid of Raj for free, or, like cards like Let the Storm Rage On that are now gone, they can't just simply sing it, get rid of your character and draw a card, etc. So therefore, I think Raja is in a much better position now than it ever has been before. Metamim, the Tiny Adversary, also known as Skater Mim, is a card that I played in Continentals in the Last Chance qualifiers, and I did really enjoy it. However, now I think it's really her time to shine. With the rest of the Metamim packages kind of going away, there's still time for the Tiny Adversary. The 2 cost inkable, 0 strength, 3 willpower, 1 lord, challenger +1, and Zim Zaberm Bim. Your other characters gain +1 challenger. A real key note to this character, in my humble opinion, is that Mim represents a very fine line of what is going to be acceptable in the combat and challenging of Disney Lorcana. A lot of characters are built with this functionality of like, these are my stats. So a lot of players are built thinking like, okay, my character is safe because of X, Y, and Z. Mim, Lumiere, these are cards that really break that fashion. Much similar to Yelena, much similar to Jafar, similar to the new Lilo. Like, there's a lot of different characters now that really break the curve and break the mold to the normal combat and challenging aspects of Disney Lorcana. And why I think that that has really gone under the radar for so long is that it's kind of funny to think about this, but challenging did not happen that often in a lot of games of Disney Lorcana, aside from the automatic guaranteed facts because of cards with Rush. But right now in this format, we actually don't have a ton of characters that have Rush. So really, we're trying to make the best of what we have in play. And the Tiny Adversary, giving that minuscule +1 challenger makes a world of a difference. It turns a lot of characters with 3 strength into 4 strength characters, which then enable them to get rid of 4 willpower characters. And it's just something that your opponents might not expect. But it really is a very reliable source to kind of tap into, I think, in this current metagame. So Tiny Adversary is a card you may have looked at and said, I will never play this card ever. And I understand, I respect that. But I promise you that little mini buff, it really can catch people off guard. And I think that Skater Mim has a true chance to be successful in the rotation format. Speaking of Amethyst Steel, of course, it is our premier guide. We're actually now putting a brand new guide out for Amethyst Steel in the rotation. It'll be our first exclusive guide for the rotation format. So if you're looking to dive deeper into the rotation format, and from my opinion, one of the best decks in it, you're going to need to check out our Amethyst Steel dot guide. It is just moments, just one QR code away, just one click away. So definitely check that out. And if you like it, if you love it, definitely hit me up in the comments below and let me know that you're excited for Amethyst Steel in the rotation format. Emerald. Oh boy, does Emerald have a new identity in Disney Lorcana? That's right. Prince John, gone. Diablo, gone. Ursula Deceiver of All, gone. What are we doing? Well, if we're being honest, we're playing a lot more fair of a game. How do we do that? Well, you got to be creative. And these characters right here, they're some of the most creative glimmers in Disney Lorcana. Basil, Undercover Detective, is a 7-cost, inkable, 5-strength, 4 willpower, 2 lore with Incapacitate. When you play this character, you may return chosen character to their player's hand and Interfere. Whenever this character quests, chosen opponent discards a card at random. We also have Lewis, the 3-cost Alligator, 4 strength, 3 willpower, 1 lore, with 2 abilities. The first being Sensitive Soul. This character enters play exerted, and Friendlier Than He Looks. When you play this character, chosen opposing character gains Reckless during their next turn. So both of these cards interact with the board quite well. The Incapacitate ability on Basil is a very notable card, and the idea that you can then quest and randomly choose and discard cards is also a big deal. It's going to kind of just interact so well with what a lot of the emerald removal is. Mother's Knows Best, You're Welcome, cards like Mother Gothel. Those are the things of continuously bouncing things back to your opponent's hand, and all of a sudden you can start questing and interfering by making them discard those cards is a big deal. I think Basil is a card that is very good in Disney Lorcana, and he just hasn't had the opportunity because that 4 willpower is very, very worrisome. But when we get to this point in the game, we have cards like Under the Sea. We have a lot of ways to interact with the board, bouncing cards. Now we're making them discard. We're gaining 2 lore. I think that Basil finally has a chance to really step out and just be a force within the metagame. Lewis is probably no different than Doc, no different than Strength of a Raging Fire. Like, this card is just your Emerald Fox. It's not Fox, but it is Fox, and it's going to be the best version of that you can possibly get. Of course, there's a lot of fear because there's a lot of characters out there that can hit 3 strength very easily, make a pretty fair trade for Lewis, but it's going to be one of those like, hey, you kind of just have to live with that. You're going to have to play this card because if you do not play this card, you're going to get absolutely run over by aggro. And this is just saying like, hey, this is my best shot. This is my best answer. And if this card ends up not being good enough, then I think Emerald is going to have a really, really tough time in rotation. Scrooge McDuck, aficionado of antiques. The 4-cost uninkable, 5 strength, 5 willpower, 2 lore. That's all she wrote. But hey, he does have some sweet flavor text, right? In the end, this card is the epitome of stats. The 4-cost 5/5 on turn 3 in Sapphire decks is a great way to interact with opposing aggressive decks. It really just is a character that we put in play and say, okay, I know that I'm going to get 2 characters with my 5/5. And that's really all he can do. If we end up getting more with that, if we have a Bell laying around, that's a big, big deal. It's a card that says, hey, I'm going to run my Scrooge McDuck in, take out this thing with 3 strength. I'm going to play a Bell. I'm going to move that 3 damage right off of my Scrooge, take out another character. I think those are the types of plays that put Sapphire Amethyst into a true potential spot in the metagame. Kita, on the other hand, is the 4-cost inkable creative thinker, 3 strength, 3 willpower, 1 lore with ward, and the ability Key to the Puzzle. Exert this. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck. Put one into your inkwell face down and exert it, and the other on the top of your deck. I think this is another card that has really been close. Obviously, people love drawing cards, and the fact that this does not let you draw a card is quite notable, but it really does enable you to get your big bombs out earlier, get that Hades out quicker, get the Elsa out quicker, get your Whale out quicker. Like, this card really does represent a lot of very good things in the right color combinations. In Emerald, it helps you get out to your bigger guns, like Basil as an example. It helps you get out WoW, as I mentioned before. And I think that we're going to keep finding reasons to make Kita playable. And Ward is a very, very noteworthy thing. This is a guaranteed ramp or a guaranteed singer. It represents both of those things. Now let's talk about some Ruby threats. Queen of Hearts losing her temper is a 2-cost inkable, 1 strength, 4 willpower, 1 lore with the ability Royal Pain. While this character has damage, she gets +3 strength. And of course, probably one of the best cards in the rotation format, Maui Half Shark. 6-cost inkable, 7 strength, 5 willpower, 1 lore with evasive, the ability Chi-Hoo! Whenever this character challenges another character, you may return an action card from your discard to your hand. And of course, Wayfinding. Whenever you play an action, gain 1 lore. Now, both of these cards represent 2 different pieces of the metagame. Queen of Hearts herself has a lot of combinations in the metagame, ways to put damage on her, ways to interact and become a 4 strength character for 2 resources is very, very above rate for Disney Lorcana. The closest thing we've seen to it before is Gaston, who is a 4/2. This card is effectively a 4/4. It's a very, very strong, powerful card, and it's definitely one that I expect to see in almost every single Ruby deck. Maui Half Shark is obviously one of the most defining cards in Disney Lorcana. It was a force to be reckoned with in Ruby Sapphire for quite some time. Also, Ruby Amethyst. I still think that Ruby Amethyst is going to be one of the best decks in the game. I think that Emerald Ruby has a really good chance to be successful, and Maui Half Shark will be a part of that. Amber Ruby might also have a chance now, and because of that, Maui Shark will also be good. Ironically, I think Ruby Sapphire is the one color combination that just doesn't feel like it's there right now. It just lost way too many things, doesn't have enough draw power, doesn't have the right type of ramp. I just feel that Ruby Sapphire is actually finally going to be falling off in a big, big way. But Maui Half Shark not going anywhere at all. I think he's going to find a home in just about every single Ruby deck. And because of that, I still think he's one of the best cards in Disney Lorcana. His ability is just saying, the game stops right now unless you have a way to interact with me. And there's even less ways to interact with the Half Shark now. Therefore, I think that these 2 cards for Ruby are going to be some of the best cards in the metagame. Definitely pick them up if for whatever reason you don't have your Half Sharks yet. I still think this card is very worthwhile getting because all it takes is one event for it just to absolutely crush. And it's probably going to be a $50, $60 legendary again. Quick shout out to our sponsors, Heavy Play. You can hit that QR code now on screen or go to heavyplay.com and at your checkout, use TFM10 for 10% off all your orders. Thank you so much for the sponsor, Heavy Play. Wonderful time. Cannot wait to showcasing your gear at Disney Lorcana Challenges. All right, so we broke down a ton of the single color combo cards. Now let's kind of just get into those dueling cards. Which cards do I think really have a chance? If you really go back and you look at the duel links over the course of the history since set 7, they haven't had a lot of time to shine. But now that we've lost so many playable cards in sets 1 through 4 that weren't reprinted, now is the time to strike. Now is the time for these cards to truly showcase their power in a less powered down format. Let's get into them. Restoring the Crown was a card that the Forbidden Mountain did get to reveal in set 7, and it's a card that I've had a bit of a touch of heart for ever since. The 6-cost uninkable Amethyst Steel action reads, exert all opposing characters whenever one of your characters banishes another character in a challenge this turn, gain 2 lore. Now, this card is a bit pricey. It does come with an uninkable tag. However, when you play this card in a lot of standstill board stances, you absolutely will just win the game. The ability to exert all opposing characters and trade all of your characters favorably into your opponent's board, and on top of that, gaining 2 lore. I think that this is a card that every once in a while in the new metagame is just going to come out, and it's going to look like the best card has ever been printed in Disney Lorcana. It has no doubt to me that there will be a lot of times where this card's not good either. So it's just going to be about what is the cost of this card, how are we going to efficiently play it, and what type of board states can we set up to guarantee that we're going to get the best bang for our buck for this card. Into the Unknown, the 3-cost inkable Amethyst Sapphire Song, put chosen exerted character into their player's inkwell face down and exert it. Spoilers, guys, I think that this might very well be one of the absolute best answers to a card like Tiana. to a card like Pluto. There're just so many problematic cards in the format that are just above rate, above stats, and you just don't have a good answer to them. You're like, you know what? I don't care anymore. See you later. We don't need to play Let It Go. We can have Into the Unknown. And that's exactly what this card represents. Although we've already seen not a ton of love for this card in the previous metagame. Again, when you remove cards like Friends on the Other Side and some of the other songs we have really come accustomed to being able to play in Sapphire Amethyst, and honestly, just, the entire Meta Mim package and things like that. Like, there's so many things that we just don't have anymore that you find room for power however you can. And Into the Unknown feels like a perfectly good placement for that deck and this card. And I definitely believe it's going to have a lot of chance in the upcoming rotation format. Giant Cobra, the Ghostly Serpent, might be one of the most played dueling cards to date, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. The 3-cost Inkable, 4 strength, 4 willpower, 1 lore with Vanish and Mysterious Advantage. When you play this character, you may choose and discard a card to gain 2 lore. Amethyst Steel currently has all of the correct tools to be successful in the metagame, whether it's through aggro, through mid-range, through control, through locations. Like, it just has so many tools that did not go away, and the deck was never really reliant on the Meta Mim package, because now we don't need to worry about playing cards like Repeat and things like that. You just needed to get enough lore to get to 20 and maintain board control along the way, and you just have some of the best static characters in the game. Giant Cobra's a 4/4, Lawrence is a 4/4, like Raja is a 3/3. You just have so many good stats in the in combination that Giant Cobra ends up being one of the better cards and remains that way. Pete, the Space Pirate, is a 6-cost Inkable, 5 strength, 5 willpower, 2 lore with Shift 4 and Frightful Scheme. When this character is exerted, opposing characters can't exert to sing songs, and your pirates gain resist 1. So this character effectively is a 5 strength, 5 willpower, and resist 1. So it's just a really, really hardy, static character that you can play on turn 4. Now, Frightful Scheme with the, exerting to sing might not be something that's crazy relevant anymore, but, taking away strength from being able to be sung is not irrelevant. There's plenty of ways and setups that, Tiana doesn't quest necessarily. She just comes in, sings the song, and then moves the game forward. But now you're not going to be able to necessarily make that play. And because of that, I think that Pete still just ends up being one of the best static characters. Emerald Steel does have a lot of question marks around it, so it's hard to say if that deck's going to remain meta relevant, losing so many core pieces of how it really just ever performed in Disney Lorcana. But I do think that a card like Space Pirate Pete being above rate on stats and having the mediocre, that mediocre difference of saying, hey, you cannot sing, which does force interaction another way and forces your opponent to play songs as actions. It is a relevant of enough keyword to note. And I just think that if Emerald Steel is going to be in the game, it's hard for them not to play this type of power level of a card. So I think that Pete Space Pirate will remain a relevant card to the metagame as long as Emerald Steel can kind of figure itself out. Diablo, the Spiteful Raven, is the 2-cost Inkable, 1 strength, 2 willpower, 1 lore with Evasive and Challenger +2. Now, again, having this type of character in the game is really nice. It does lock you into this ink combination, but right now, Emerald Amethyst has a ton of evasive synergy. It also is one of the prime targets for me for the Meta Mim Skater Mim. Just making this character have a 4 strength is a really big deal. The brand new Genie that was also revealed is another really good card, making this evasive character all of a sudden a Challenger +4 in a way. So it becomes a 5/2 character on turn 2. So I think there's a lot of love for Diablo. I think if we're going to be playing Emerald Amethyst, we're certainly going to be playing into evasives, potentially even playing cards like the new Dumbo and things like that. So I believe that this is going to have a lot of opportunity cost to be very powerful in the format. And then, of course, we have the Lady Decisive Dog, the 1-cost Inkable, 0 strength, 3 willpower, 1 lore with Pack of Her Own. When you play a character, this character gains +1 strength this turn and take the lead. When this character has 3 strength or more, she gets +2 lore. She's effectively a 1-cost Inkable character with the potential to have 3 lore. It's not that unheard of. There are a lot of ways for the Dogs deck to kind of turn Lady into a 3 lore character. And having 3 willpower means you have the potential to do it multiple times, which is quite interesting. This also very much interacts very well with the new Genie as well, because the moment you quest with new Genie, all of a sudden she's already a 2-strength character. So then you can just play one more character for turn her back into a 3-strength character, and then gain 3 lore again. So yeah, Lady Decisive Dog, very, very interesting card for the format, keeping on with the Amber aggressive theme. And of course, you might not have Chernobog anymore, but you still have plenty of great big threats in this ink combination, and therefore I do think the dogs will have a very good chance moving forward into the metagame as well. Hey guys, if you have a chance, definitely check out the Metafy. You can go on, just follow us on Metafy, get a notification whenever something comes out new. We also have this brand new Lorcana Foundations guide. We keep releasing it. There's already 2 more articles scheduled to come out before the release of Fabled, and they're really just discussing like game theory. If you're new to games, if you're not really that advanced and you're just trying to learn and pick up little tidbits from some of the best players in Disney Lorcana, that guide is perfect for you. If you're more on the financial side, then hey, Lorcana Finance is a big deal for us. Obviously, Scott and I, we run a business. A lot of people always see me at the start of every new set with that picture with all of our boxes and things like that. It's because we run a business, and the business side of that is really what funds all of our trips. It's not the content, it's not the Metafy, it is Disney Lorcana trading card game sales. So that idea, that concept, we're trying to give back to the community, give you the opportunity to learn from some of the best minds in that realm. I guarantee you, I have opened and sold more product than probably any player that you know in the game. So if you're looking to get a little bit more advanced on the buying and selling aspects of Disney Lorcana, Disney Lorcana Finance is definitely for you. Amethyst Ruby has a lot of very, very playable dueling cards in Disney Lorcana. Madame Medusa, the 3-cost inkable, 3 strength, 3 willpower, 1 lore, with the ability Double Cross. When you play this character, you may deal 2 damage to another chosen character of yours to return chosen character with cost 2 or less to their player's hand. So this effectively gives you the ability to do 2 damage to your smaller Queen of Hearts, turning it into a 4/4 at that point, or a 4/2, and then also bouncing another character to your opponent's hand, setting the tempo back in a very, very big way. What I believe this card will do more than anything is very similar to what Fox did. It will prevent your opponent from questing on turn 2. Because if they do quest their 1 cost on turn 2, all of a sudden you can now play Madame Medusa, hit your Queen of Hearts, bounce their 2-drop, buff your character, take out their 1-drop, and all of a sudden you might be sitting there with the potential of 2 characters in play to your opponent's 0. Madame Medusa is an absolute threat. The 3/3 body makes her even more playable. I think this is a card that absolutely goes from, a generic 10% like 10-cent uncommons, probably like $1 or $2 uncommon. I don't know if it's Tipo level, uncommon yet, but this card certainly will be a very, very playable card in Ruby Amethyst. And I think the sleeper pick here for me, and a card that I don't see too many people talking about, is the Queen of Hearts Unpredictable Bully. This 5-cost uninkable, 2 strength, 6 willpower, 2 lore with shift 3, and if I lose my temper, whenever another character is played, put a damage counter on them. I think this card is very interesting. I think it interacts really, really well with a lot of different cards in this ink combination, because it turns on your Queen of Hearts, it turns on your card soldiers. Obviously, it gets around resist, so it hits Calhoun, it hits Rhino, making Rhino a pretty terrible card, if I'm being honest. If they pay 4 for a 4/2 with 2 lore, with 0 resist, you kind of just laugh at them. It's pretty fun. I just think that there's a lot really going on in the Emerald Ruby aspect, and there's going to be a lot of different decks I think that you're going to be able to try and kind of interact with. But I do believe that this Queen of Hearts finally will have an opportunity to be quite good in Disney Lorcana. Amber also picks up a nice couple good dueling cards, right? Rhino Power Hamster. Well, I will say about the Rhino Power Hamster here, this 4-cost inkable, 4 strength, 3 willpower, 2 lore with shift 2 and epic ball of awesome. While this character has no damage, he gains resist 2. I will say that this card is still a very, very good card in Disney Lorcana, but I would also argue that it is a worse card now than it was before. And the reason for that, the lack of songs. Being able to shift 2 with Rhino, sing a Zeus to get rid of a really threatening character was a big deal in the metagame previously. But now we don't have Zeus. We don't have Let the Storm Rage on. We don't have any good ways to really utilize the Singer mechanic on turn 2. And there's not a lot of good reasons to do it, actually. I think that we could make an argument that Rhino, the 16th power, the 1-cost 1/2, you might not even need to play that card, and just having a 4-cost 4/3 2-lore with resist 2 might be good enough. If we just straight up compare him to Genie, but inkable, the Wish Fulfilled Genie, that's what I think the role he's playing, and I think that's still pretty good and okay. But I don't think there's this world where everyone has to figure out a way to answer a turn 2 Rhino, because a turn 2 Rhino actually is a lot worse than just spreading out the wealth. I'm playing 2 different characters in a big way, in my humble opinion. The other card that I think we have not seen the light of day ever is King Candy Royal Racer, the 4-cost uninkable, 2 strength, 2 willpower with 2 lore, and the ability Sweet Revenge. Whenever one of your other racer characters is banished, each opponent chooses and banishes one of their characters. I believe this card has a lot of opportunity. Now, while it is a 2/2, and that is a bit of a problem, if your opponent is holding on to their, Fire the Cannons until this point, there's a very good chance that when you play King Candy on turn 4, you're going to send a racer into something anyway, banish one of your characters, banish another one of those characters, and then by the time they even play their Fire the Cannons, you have already at least gotten your first 2 for 1. Also, the opportunity cost for them to play Fire the Cannons much earlier is a very big deal. So if they're saving a Fire the Cannons for your King Candy, while it's not fun, it's still kind of acceptable. Therefore, I do think that Racers has a really good chance in a power down format. I think the synergy for Racers is at an all-time high, and there's a lot of opportunity for this deck to finally find a home within the metagame. It might not be tier 1 just yet, but I certainly think that this deck will be in the metagame, and probably at the very least a tier 2 deck. Thank you guys so much. I am curious. Listen, let me know in the comments what characters you think are better. What songs are you hoping to play? Are there any actions that are out there that I'm missing? Like, I think the format is so different, and I could talk about it for honestly forever, but I think that these cards are true foundation pieces to really start building with right now. We don't have the full set review. It's coming soon. I'd imagine that like within 48 hours of me even releasing this video, we'll probably have the full spoiler. And there's obviously some context that can be added in. There might be a big reprint that we missed, but I think all in all right now, we have a lot of the key pieces, and hopefully there's not too much of a big change in those last 20-25 cards in the format. So with that, I'm impartial. I'm excited for rotation because it means an opportunity cost for a lot of these cards on this like list that really have never seen a lot of play. But I am worried that the format is not like as fun is the word I could use as a previous format, because there's just so many like powerful things that you can do and now you can't. But all in all, thanks for watching today, guys. Hit that like button for me if you haven't yet. Hit subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one.